Oh, great. First, actually, I have to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday when I listened to Les Brown's talk. And it reminded me of all sorts of other great American revolutionary moments our time, from the American Revolution, civil rights to World War II mobilization, of course. And it struck me that Roosevelt didn't kind of just say, gosh, we've got to stop building cars, but maybe I have to ask people first. There was like such enlightened leadership that was out there, and he knew that he had to take enormous amounts of risks. My dad actually joined in World War II, joined the armed forces himself. And this was a man who lived under Jim Crow every single day of his life. But he understood that the threat of international fascism was huge. But what he thought was even more important was the promise of America. And that's what this man fought for. And that's what we are fighting for too. Is when I think of the kind of leadership that Van and I are putting out there right now, to use this transitional moment that America's in right now, to use the green economy to help move people out of poverty. I think we're in the same footsteps of those great American revolutionaries, from Martin Luther King, Roosevelt, you name them all. That's what we're trying to do right now, because the problem is that big. We know what the threat is. We've been talking about it for the past 3 days. But what is the promise that we're looking for right now? And I consider the agency that I started 7 years ago a little bit of that promise. It's called Sustainable South Bronx. And we grew out of a real huge problem. We were considered, the South Bronx is a poor Latino and Black community in New York City, huge repository of much of the city's waste. And at the time I started getting into this work, Mayor Giuliani decided that he was going to build this huge waste facility on our waterfront that would have brought 40% of the city's municipal waste to our community. We were already handling 40% of the city's municipal waste. In addition to sewage treatment plants, sewage sludge pelletizing plants, 60,000 diesel truck trips running through our community each and every week, assaulting our lungs, our brains with all sorts of fossil fuel emissions that cause severe health problems, in particular asthma. My organization came about because we listened to what folks wanted in their communities. They wanted things that everybody wants: clean air, parks to take their kids to within walking distance, living wage jobs that didn't degrade the environment, transportation systems that actually worked for people and not just big, huge trucks. And so my agency worked to provide the kind of sustainable environmental and economic development projects that people could see and feel and experience. So I actually worked to start the first waterfront park my community's had in 60 years. Grew out of that, the creation, I wrote a $1.25 million federal transportation grant to design the South Bronx Greenway, which is a collection of on-street and also waterfront bike paths to get people connected to nature itself, but also to provide opportunities for recreation as well as economic development. We also truly, truly believe that as we work to restore our environment, that we knew that it also needed to restore the people that were there, because one thing that we have learned to understand is that we're just a part of an ecosystem as human beings, and we tend to overstate our importance in it. But we also knew that if we weren't getting people in our community on the ground to understand just how important it was for them to be a part of their environment, then we weren't going to have a chance. But to talk to people that are in crisis, that already are suffering from huge rates of unemployment, the kind of environmental impacts, in particular asthma, like you try talking, to a mother, who spent all night in an emergency room with her son because her kid's lungs were just collapsing in on themselves, and see how easy it is for her to get to work in the morning, if she has a job to even go to. So when you can't just talk to people about crises, you can just say, oh, global warming's happening and you're all gonna die, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, you have to help them understand that they can have both a personal and a financial stake in the environment. Our biggest part of our budget, the biggest part of our entire program is a program called BEST, which stands for Bronx Environmental Stewardship Training. We train young folks from our community and also from around the city right now in the field of ecological restoration. Everything from green roof installation, to brownfield remediation, to urban forestry management. And we did that because we realized that if these folks could be the stewards of the environment, that they would be a huge symbol for what could happen, you know, in this world if you do it properly. Because these are folks, many of them, most of them, on public assistance. Many of them had actually been incarcerated before. Almost all of them actually were unemployed when they got to us. And yet now these folks know how important they are. You want to talk power, you talk to a single mom who's never had a job before and who recognizes that she's doing a powerful service, not only to her family, but to the environment as well. And we were actually also fortunate enough to be able to hire two of the folks that went through our BEST program and actually hire them to start to basically serve as the ambassadors for the coming greenway that's happening in our community. So they're actually caring for the street trees that are there right now, and they also serve as installers for our green roof installation business. So again, like, we've actually given people an opportunity to see that there are green jobs out there, and that this is what we're doing on a small scale in the South Bronx, you know, is an enormous, I think, an enormous way to show that if it happened there, it can happen everywhere if we had the right kind of resources to make it happen, to make people that were formerly considered a part of the problem now the solution that actually needs to happen, so that we can, one, alleviate poverty, and two, also help remediate the environment that we all know is in desperate need of some help and love and tenderness.